Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me and Allegheny County Controller Corey O'Connor, who is challenging Mayor Ed Gainey as we take a deeper look at some of the important topics you want to know more about ahead of the mayoral primary happening here in Pittsburgh on May 20th. Early voting has now begun, and you can also check out my interview with Mayor Ed Gainey on the Pittsburgh City Paper's YouTube channel. But right now, hey, Corey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule and pulling over to be safe during our conversation to
Just in
chat with
case.
me.
Yes, right. Can't do this while you're driving. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's start with housing. So, when it comes to affordable housing, in your minds, what does that actually mean?
So, I mean, we have to make sure that our city is affordable for people that already live here to buy a new home, but also for people that want to move to the city of Pittsburgh. And right
Mhm.
now, we're short 6,000 affordable units, and we're also short probably 15,000 market rate units, which means we're stagnant in growth and opportunities.
Mhm.
And when I was on city council, worked to pass the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which was great. I mean, it was $10 million at the time when I represented, Squirrel Hill, Hazelwood, Greenfield, Lincoln Place, all those areas. We started building housing that was affordable. And it wasn't just affordable for rent, it was rent to own because we
Mhm.
know home ownership is the key to generational wealth.
Mhm.
And we have to do more and more of those things. But we also have to look at the entire system. So the city has 11,000 vacant parcels. Not
Mhm.
everyone can be used for any type. I mean, some are on hillsides, so you can't use every parcel. But the thousands of parcels that we have, we should have been getting them shovel ready so that neighborhood organizations, nonprofits who build affordable housing have the ability to acquire that property
Mhm. Mhm.
because we all know that site acquisition, site preparation is a huge lift for a nonprofit. So
Mhm.
that's where the city has to be more aggressive in doing that. Then it comes down to tax credits. Even when you get a tax credit deal like a 9% LIHTC or 4%, there's still gaps in funding. So we
Mhm.
have to set up a fund where we could bridge those gaps so it's easier to fully achieve affordable housing development.
Mhm.
And then lastly, it's permits. Our permitting system, it takes months to get a simple permit. So
Mhm.
we have to streamline that process, especially if somebody is building affordable housing. They should go to the top of the line, streamline that so that we can get those projects built faster. And right now, we aren't doing that. And we're not being transparent with how many units we are building.
Mhm.
We all know that the administration currently has lied multiple times on how many units they've built. They were at 2,000, then they were at 1,000, now they're at 1,600, and those were all new units. But then when they were questioned about it, it came down to, well, they're not new, they're delivered, which
Mhm.
again, you're lying.
Mhm.
You've only built a couple hundred new units, and that's not acceptable when we need thousands.
So let's talk a little bit more about the city of Pittsburgh and how we continue to lose population here. Why do you think people aren't staying? So you had mentioned you were on council for many years. So what is it that you think could be done to keep people here and to encourage people to be here?
Well, first, I mean, the first initiative we put out was a family first approach. I believe, having a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, every family should choose Pittsburgh first. And yet we don't talk to families enough and use our spaces adequately for them. Like our rec centers should start opening at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the mornings, not 9 to 5 like they do right now, because we know both parents work 2 jobs, or at least each one works a job. So if you had a place to drop your kids off before you went to work, that's accommodating new families that need space for their kids. Extending hours, using our vacant school buildings that sit there most nights empty or on weekends or on holidays. And we don't have any vision to do that. And then you look at our rec spaces, outdoor spaces, scoreboards don't work. Trails are not being connected. Those are the little things that make it a family friendly environment that young people and new families want to stay in Pittsburgh. Then it comes down to jobs and growth. What was the last major company that located in Pittsburgh? We have to be very aggressive at calling companies, not just the ones that already exist, the small companies that are here, helping them to expand, but be on a list calling 10 companies a week that need space but haven't thought about Pittsburgh. And we're not doing that anymore. And you see it in our economy. You see it in vacant space downtown and in our neighborhoods. And we have to be more aggressive there. We also have to be aggressive with young entrepreneurs. with so many vacant storefronts around Pittsburgh, why are we not putting them in those spaces to grow their own companies? Because there's no vision for it right now.
So when we're talking about businesses, and I know you were touching on this, encouraging them to put down roots, does it go though just beyond giving them tax breaks? Because that seems to ruffle a lot of feathers when we're talking about community members, that these large corporations come in, they don't seem to pay taxes. What are other ways to try to incentivize businesses to want to be here?
Well, I mean, you first have to contact them. I mean, we
Mm,
had a radio debate the other day, and they asked three companies that you would talk to, and the mayor couldn't name one, which means we aren't actually being aggressive in locating companies, even ones that are here or within Allegheny County that need extra space. Why are they not on our top 10 list? EA Sports is one that we talk about a lot. They take so much talent from CMU and move it to California. Those are people that could live and stay in Pittsburgh.
mm.
But you have to talk to those companies to have satellites in the city. And that creates more jobs and opportunity and creates wealth. And yet we don't have those conversations. And that's the shame of it.
So let's talk a little bit about policing. We know that this is a very diverse city with lots of different communities, and they all have different needs. And some communities want safety in the sense, aka, they would like more police presence in their neighborhoods. But then others feel as if their communities are often being over-policed and under-resourced. So how do you balance this?
Well, first you need a chief of police. To not have a chief of police in 4 years is a shame.
Mm,
There's no direction right now in our police force. So you need a chief of police who's going to have a community-oriented policing model that's going to be adapted, that's going to work with community leaders, that's going to work with community organizations, that's going to help to recruit a diverse group of people that want to be Pittsburgh police officers. And if you don't have a chief, who's calling the shots? And
mhm.
nobody's doing that right now. And I think that's the shame of it. And it's hard to
Well, there is
recruit
an
when
interim chief of police because we had
yeah,
talked
but
with
e-
Gainey
every
about
every
this.
every
Yeah.
chief has been part time.
Mm-hmm,
They haven't
hmm.
had a full time chief.
So you
Everybody's part
say
time.
that correlates directly with concerns on the street
Well,
from
concerns
people.
on the street, concerns for our safety as residents, but also
Mm-hmm,
concerns for our officers' safety. Are our officers working 12-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts?
hmm,
They don't
hmm,
know because there's no direction or leadership. And all these acting chiefs doesn't make them full time. Nobody's actually done this job full time.
hmm,
The last guy was refereeing basketball, hundreds of miles away. And by the way, that was told to us that wasn't going to happen. So not only did the chief lie, the mayor lied to the general public as well as the city council that he was not going to referee. And what did he do? He started refereeing. That's the lack of transparency that we have in our government right now. And it's not only in policing, it's in our budget. We know in the next 2 years the city's going to be out of money, but yet we aren't talking about that. We're not talking about growing our tax base so that we don't become bankrupt again.
hmm.
And yet nobody's having that conversation.
So when you think of how we move it forward, then when we're looking at policing in communities with some wanting more of a presence and some communities feeling over-policed, what else besides a police chief do you think needs to happen?
Well, I mean, you need outreach programs as
Hmm,
well. We were supposed to have six roots programs in six police zones.
hmm,
We are now down to one, and one is partially remote.
hmm,
And they had three, two of them closed. Now one's partially remote again. That was 10 million plus dollars that was supposed to be invested in our community in social work outreach to help with mental health, drug, alcohol addiction, and the unhoused population. And yet we have two, and again, one is part-time. You're not actually providing social worker services to our neighborhoods, and that's how you start turning that conversation around,
hmm.
having a presence but actually coming and helping people, and they're not doing that. And that's what I would do. I would make sure that those six hubs are reopened.
So let's talk a little bit about race. So you and Mayor Ed Gainey, who is running against you in this primary, you have very different lived experiences. And when I've heard you both speak to your constituents, it's clear that often you're talking to different groups of people. And more specifically, it seems as though you are talking to different business leaders. And so your campaign has the support of many real estate developers in this city. So can you share some of the grassroots community support that you are getting?
Well, I would also say he got the money from the same real estate developers. So, the argument that I'm the only one that gets real estate development money is a joke. In fact,
Mhm.
he had a fundraiser with a Republican developer who had displaced people from Penn Plaza.
Mhm.
So that's who's backing the mayor, but he doesn't
Mhm.
want to talk about the facts.
Mhm.
So yes, for me, we have a diverse group. We have people all across Pittsburgh that have come together to talk about grassroots opportunities and getting back to neighborhood first approaches. And he's not doing that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we see it in each and every neighborhood we've door knocked. And we've door knocked probably 16,000 doors ourselves, trying to get to about 30 to 35,000 by the end of this. So, yeah, I mean, we are talking to everybody because in my administration, everybody has a voice, everybody has a stake in Pittsburgh. And I actually think this is why I'm so eager to do this job. We collectively have the ability to rebuild our city again. And it
Mhm.
takes voices and leadership in all diverse populations of Pittsburgh.
Do you want to share any of those grassroots organizations that you're working with specifically?
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
you have leaders from community groups. I mean,
Mhm.
community organizations are not endorsing anybody in this
Mhm.
election. That's
Mhm.
not what they do.
Mhm.
But you talk to each and every leaders. You have one-on-one meetings. We met with minority contractors a couple weeks
Mhm.
ago to
Mhm.
talk about bridging those gaps so that they can not only get local contracts through city government, but how they can bid on private companies as well and see what
Mhm.
their gaps are in services so that we can make sure that our minority organizations who want to bid on larger contracts have the ability to do it because they feel like they have been left out and shut out. And I also think we have an immigrant population that we don't talk enough about. In the South Hills of Pittsburgh alone, last year, our immigrant population created 40 new businesses.
Mhm.
That should be on every TV commercial talking about Pittsburgh. And
Mhm.
yet we don't talk about it. And that's the shame of it because we can't keep selling Pittsburgh the way we did 20 years ago. It's not working. So we need a change in course, a change in mindset, and a change in vision.
So, when you think of change and the future of Pittsburgh, it's very clear that there is still very much a racial divide, and many people historically have felt left out of sort of the new Pittsburgh experience. So, sort of expanding on what you were sharing, how can we work to bridge that divide under your leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the administration, it's boards, it's authorities, making sure that people from all across Pittsburgh have a voice at the table.
Hmm.
And again, it's an opportunity to rebuild. So if somebody has an idea that was turned down 10 years ago, that idea might work right now. But we
Hmm.
have to be open-minded and have a proactive approach to how we're going to rebuild the city together. And it takes each and every one of us.
Corey, as we wrap up, and thank you so much for your time, I asked Mayor Ed Gainey the same question, so I wanted to pose it to you. Why are you the right choice to lead us into this next phase of Pittsburgh?
I mean, I think my 11 years experience in city government, knowing how to turn water fountains on in the summer goes a long way. But not only that, 3 years as county controller and seeing how we have to stretch every dollar because we know the city's not being transparent about walking over a financial cliff. Talking about growth and opportunities, talking about affordable housing in every neighborhood,
Mhm.
talking about the ability for families to choose Pittsburgh first. That's been our vision. And I think collectively, we can rebuild our city. We just need somebody who has the experience to do it and from day one has that mental approach of growth and opportunity. And that's what makes me, I believe, the best candidate to be the next mayor.
Corey O'Connor, thank you so much
All
for
right.
your
Thank
time.
you. Take
Yeah.
care. Thanks.
Mhm.